Welcome back to the Uncensored Journey podcast. This is season 1, episode 1, and I am so excited to be here with you all. It's your girl May from Simply May's Thoughts, and I just want to let you all know that you're in for a ride. We got some really juicy topics, but let me run the intro first, and then we'll get into the show. Okay. So, welcome to the Uncensored Journey podcast, the only podcast where you can speak your mind unapologetically, challenge the status quo, feel comfortable having the uncomfortable conversations, and even if it gets a little bit messy, just know it's done with good intentions by a class act. So, let's get to the facts. All right. So, today we're going to be talking a bit about Taraji P. Henson and Monique and how, the public perceive both of their claims. We're going to talk about some Katt Williams. We'll definitely get into some world news around immigration and, some interesting topics such as Israel and the U.S. support of different demographics. So, we're going to start off first with reintroducing the podcast to you all so you can understand the vision behind it, the goals, the different segments that I have for you. So for those of you who do not know, the Uncensored Journey podcast is a podcast that I developed to really shed light on the different lived experiences around the world. I am an advocate for higher education. I am an advocate for international development. I'm an all-around advocate, and I thought that it's best to use a platform to really shed light on those experiences. So that was the whole purpose of the podcast. Hence, it's called Uncensored Journey, because I want for whoever to join me on this podcast and whoever's going to join in on discussions that you feel comfortable sharing your unconventional path or journey that you've taken to get where you're at. It doesn't matter if you got to the destination you want to get to, if you're on your way there, or if you haven't even started yet. I want you to have a space where you understand that other people are experiencing the same thing and you're not alone. So what I'm going to do is I would definitely like to talk to you about some of the segments that I have scheduled for you. But if you have not liked, comment, and subscribe, please, and let me know what are you looking forward to in the show. If you are a day one of Simply May's Thoughts, definitely like and subscribe, because some of y'all aren't subscribed, but the YouTube be telling me that y'all coming back, so clearly you like something. So just go ahead and subscribe. All right. So also, if you have not followed the podcast on Instagram, we are on Instagram, Uncensored Journey Podcast, spelled just the way you see it on your screen right here. And I'm going to get into the name first. So, Uncensored Journey Podcast, as you can see, it's not spelled the conventional way for uncensored because I am Senegalese, right? And so when I saw uncensored, I just switched out the CEN and put in Sen from like Senegal to show my African pride and bring back some recognition to my culture and my roots. And so some of the topics may be related to Senegal, just to give you a peek into my world. But everywhere I go, I will definitely showcase my identity and my culture. And so that's why the podcast is called Uncensored Journey. It's to highlight, number one, my culture, highlight my upbringing, but also bring you all into my life. Now, the interesting part is the segments that I have for you all, I feel like it totally balances out with my personality, because if some of you don't know, I am a higher education professional. I am also a researcher. I graduated from Cornell University, and so that's my professional side, but I have a very lively personality, and it's kind of like when I'm with my family, I'm me. I get to take off whatever labels people have on me to be proper and just chill with my family. So I really feel like the podcast is going to showcase both of my personalities. So we're going to have a segment called Make It Make Sense. So Make It Make Sense is where we have conversations about pop culture, whatever cultural news is or current events that's happening, where it could get a little bit messy, but it's juicy. So we're going to talk about it, right? Of course, it's always going to be like, hey, there's the reason why we're talking about it, so we can all move away with lessons like Diddy and Cassie. But I'm not going to get into that this episode. We're going to talk about that another episode because they need their own podcast just for them. But yes, back to Make It Make Sense. Make It Make Sense is literally a phrase that I say in my life a million times a day. Like, if you see this face, in my head, I'm saying, make it make sense. I really feel like the people in this world just be doing stuff and nothing makes sense. So that is why we have a segment called Make It Make Sense. This is where we get to discuss what's going on, share our thoughts, and honestly just chill and have a little fun. Like we had the kitchen table talking. Then I have the state of the world. So state of the world, this is a segment where we can talk about, we're going to break down critical inflection points in society on a number of ongoing events, and usually it'll end in a call to action. So if there are world events that are happening that's, really triggering, I really want us to have a genuine discussion about it and see what we can do as a community, as a team, to better that experience that people are having around the world, whether it's fundraising, whether it's, dismantling any harmful ideologies, whatever we could do as a community to better the experience. I really want us to use that segment to talk about it. Then we're going to have Samahalat. So Samahalat means my thoughts in Wolof, which is the native language in Senegal. So when you hear me on Samahalat, that means that I'm going to be going in and out of English and Wolof, talking about topics relevant to Senegal. And so I'm still going to be speaking English throughout it to still pull in you all so you don't feel left out. But that is a segment where I'll be speaking to anyone who really has an interest in understanding what's happening in Senegal and wants to do something about it, or just wants to talk about the culture and the experience. So after Samahalat, we have Highlighting Our Stars. Highlighting Our Stars is a show that I started. It really did start on Instagram, where I was talking about how oftentimes we can get stuck into the negative parts of what's going on in society, and we forget to highlight those that are doing a good job in making a difference in the world. So Highlighting Our Stars is a show where I invite people who I feel are really making a positive change in society and showcasing that on this platform. So whether it's an influencer who's using comedy to uplift people, or using their platform to educate, or someone who is really working in an NGO, whatever your field is, there are so many people that are like mental health advocates. Whatever your field is, I want to invite you on the show so we can have a discussion and really amplify those voices and raise awareness for the fact that, yeah, I understand these things are happening in the world, but we also have these dope, amazing individuals that are killing the game and really making a difference in a world that I want to make sure that we highlight. So that is what Highlighting Our Stars is. And lastly, we have Stimulate Your Mind. Stimulate Your Mind is an interesting concept, because Stimulate Your Mind can be a story time that I'm sharing with you all about my life. It can be us playing a game. It can be a riddle that I'm throwing out there to you all and asking you to solve it. It's really just a time for us to have some fun. I like to close off every show with some positivity. Sometimes topics can get heavy, and so I really want to use the Stimulate Your Mind segment to allow for us to get back into that positive mindset when we're going back out into the world. So let's get started on our topics. I want to start off with Make It Make Sense. So the first topic for Make It Make Sense is Taraji P. Henson and Monique. A lot of people are asking, how come Taraji P. Henson and Monique were received differently when they had the same claims? They were claiming that they weren't getting equal pay when compared to their counterparts in the Hollywood industry, that they were treated differently for being women of color, even though they're leading in their fields. And people were sort of confused as to why these two individuals were being treated differently. Well, Monique wasn't received well by the public, and then Taraji P. Henson was received well. And I want to highlight the fact that both of them had different approaches to addressing the same issue or similar issue. And I want to highlight those. So, number one, Taraji P. Henson presented herself as feminine. She presented herself as soft and like really needing a emotional support system. Monique presented herself as masculine and dominant. She was very bold and daring in her response and how she addressed these injustices. What I will say is, neither are wrong. Because I feel if you do harm to me, you do not have the right to tell me how to react. They both reacted well in their right. It just so happened that one person was received better and the other wasn't. And I'm going to tell you why I think that was. I think Taraji P. Henson was received better because it seemed more genuine to the public. It seemed like she was really hurt and she was crying, and you could see her sisters coming around her and like reassuring her, like, we got your back, right? A group of black women on stage with her while she's promoting The Color Purple. Really, you could tell that there was love and support in the room. But it is still a group of black women all showing feminine energy and being very soft. On the other hand, Monique came in swinging. Monique came in and called everybody out, was very bold, and she had a black man that stood beside her the whole time. I think the world isn't necessarily used to a black man having his wife's back in that capacity so publicly and so unapologetically. And what I think happened here is that oftentimes us as people, we are so quick to put on our cape and go and save someone who we feel like, oh my God, poor baby, you need our support. And I'm not saying that's what Taraji wanted to present. I feel like she had genuine emotions, genuine reactions, but we perceived it as more feminine, more soft. And so the society, we like reeled in to help Taraji. Whereas Monique, because she was so bold and so daring and then had someone who we felt like had her back no matter what, I think we really did Monique wrong. And I'm saying we, although I agreed with Monique the whole time and I supported her, I think that as she was being attacked, that us as a whole could have done better supporting her. Even if we didn't like the way she said it, she was still speaking her truth. So that's why I say there was a difference in the way it was received. But also, you have to also understand how America usually reacts to the angry black woman. They dismiss our emotions if like we're presenting to them as an angry black woman. So Monique came in and was just like, listen, here's what's going on, da, 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 da. And people are like, whoa. And she might have come off as an angry black woman. And America is so used to disregarding the experiences that black women are having in whatever sector, because it's like, well, you could have said it nicer. Who are you to tell me I could have said it nicer? Why did you do that in the first place? So that's where I think things happen. I also feel like Taraji was received differently because it seemed more genuine. And I'm going to tell you why it seemed more genuine. It seemed more genuine because when Taraji was announcing that she was not getting equal pay, she did not feel valued or respected or appreciated, she wasn't in the middle of negotiating a contract. It seems like these are things that have been happening for the longest, and she is now talking about it after she's already closed her contracts. And it's not like she's asking us, go and talk to this specific company and tell them to pay me my worth. It literally was, listen, y'all, I almost did not even do this movie because they would not pay me my worth. The production team did this and this and this, and then this and this and that. And this is why I'm talking about it now. It's like the deal was done. She's done. She advocated for herself, and she's now telling us after the fact and hoping that moving forward it'll be better. Whereas with Monique, it seemed like she still wanted the deal with Netflix, but she wanted to use the court. She wanted to use like the court of public opinion in her favor by telling us what she's going through, and still also telling us boycott Netflix and tell them to pay me my worth for my special. So we were trying to figure out whether, like, do you want us to boycott Netflix, or do you want us to pressure them to pay you your worth because you're well within your right. You did deserve more money. Absolutely. You're amazing. You're a legend. So I think it felt a little bit confusing. We didn't know what she wanted, and it seems as though the sole goal was to get whatever money she needed. And like in the midst, I'm gonna also address a problem. You know, like I think the public perceived it as Taraji being more genuine in her approach. And I could understand where people are coming from. So that's one part of it. Also, Taraji didn't call a specific entity or person out. She has been addressing actions. She's been talking about actions. They did this. They did that. Right? Whereas Monique, she addressed actions and the actors. And it just so happened that the actors were people who are really loved in the Black community for what they stand for, like Oprah and Tyler Perry and Lee Daniels. They were seen as like people who really worked their way up and made some generational wealth for themselves. And I think the people who should have supported Monique, like us Black people especially, we had a hard time letting go of people who we thought of as good figures, and realizing that they did our sister wrong, like they did our auntie wrong. So I think those are my thoughts on why Taraji and Monique were perceived differently. I also think it's funny that Katt Williams did the same thing Monique did, but he's being praised. Katt Williams literally did the same thing. A bunch of people in his industry that are Black people who we look up to and value were doing things to him that he did not appreciate, and he came out and called every single one of them out. He called out their names and he called out their actions. Monique did the same thing. She came out and called out 3 people who she felt like were being against her and doing things that she did not appreciate. And when she called them out, we were almost like hesitant to even like, okay, how do we address this now? But the same thing that Katt Williams is being praised for, Monique was literally left out to hang. And I think that's a reflection we need to have as a society of like, hey, the next time our sister or our auntie is calling people out, even if you don't feel like it's genuine, but you know that there's some substance there to what she's saying, we should support her better. Like, I absolutely thought that what Monique said was true. Like, I didn't question it. I think it was the way it came out of like, you need to boycott Netflix and tell them to still give me my contract, where we were like, what? Okay. And I feel like we didn't do Monique justice, and I think now is our opportunity to correct the past, and at least we need to stand by Taraji, because one thing about it, both of those sisters are talented, amazing, living legends that need to be praised. They are doing an amazing job, and it's people like them that keeps our culture visible, keeps our young women inspired, and they need all of our support. So those are my breakdowns on why they were received differently. I also think that it came down to a matter of people. It seemed like people in the industry didn't really like Monique like that, or that's what was being portrayed after she came out. Because even when she went on the Breakfast Club and Angela Yee was like, well, someone who was working with you told me that you weren't nice, and she's like, say the name or leave it on the playground. And it seems like conversations were already stirring in the background, and people have a more support and liking towards Taraji. That's what it seems like. So those are my thoughts on what happened between Taraji and Monique, and how they were received. So let's get into state of the world. I want to talk about immigration. Our borders have definitely been compromised, and people are taking advantage of that. And I think that there's so many stereotypes happening and going around about immigrants, and I think it's important for us to correct those stereotypes. They're being perceived as criminals. And I want to remind you all who are, especially in the US, unless you are Native American, you are an immigrant. We are not native to these lands and waters. We do not have any reason to tell anyone that they do not belong here. I agree, go through the proper route, but these are not your lands and waters. These lands and waters were stolen and not giving back. If you think saying, hey, here's a reservation for you is enough, no, it's not. And so what I don't appreciate is when you're on social media and people who do not understand the history of immigration are in the comments calling them criminals. It's offensive, because a lot of these people who are leaving their countries are lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, and the only reason why they left is to provide a better life to their family. So that's really the stereotype that I don't appreciate. It's because they're positioning immigrants as these low-life criminals, when actually they probably have much more experience, much more education than many people in America. And so we need to check our stereotypes at the door. But recently, there was a woman named Ashley St. Clair who basically was very mad that the immigrants were being allowed to go on airplanes without ID. And so I reacted to it on my TikTok. If you don't have me on TikTok, please add me. It's Simply Maze, just how I spell it here on the screen. Simply Maze _thoughts. I'm going to play that video for you all, and then we'll talk after you listen to the audio.
Ashley here wants to know why Delta isn't requiring medical screenings for migrants who are on flights. And the simple answer to that is you cannot be poor and racist. You need to pick a struggle. You cannot be poor and racist. If you know that you don't want to be placed in the same space as certain demographics, then you need to make sure that you have the finances to place yourself in an exclusive environment, aka a private jet. So since you don't have the private jet, I'm going to take a few seconds to educate you. Number one, there will be no reason why Delta will be requiring medical screenings for migrants, because there's no other population on the plane that will be required to do medical screenings. That is a discriminatory practice, which is a clear concept that you don't understand, or else you wouldn't have asked this not so smart question. I'm trying to educate you with love, but it's hard. Number two, if anyone on that flight needs to be providing medical screenings, it's you, Ashley, because the USA is leading in diseases. Over 60% of US residents are living with chronic diseases. We were leading in COVID-19 cases, on top of the fact that out of all the first world countries, our healthcare system just may be the most inequitable. So, sad to say, but the next time you want to ask a stupid question, think twice, because you just might get stupid prizes. Have a good day.
And I said what I said because I'm definitely going to read the comments, because people were really mad about the fact that I said that. And it's like, they're like, they should not let immigrants on flights without IDs. Do you really think the USA is letting somebody on an airplane without an ID? When they're in the processing center, they have to show their identification before they get their paperwork to be released. So they have already been their identity has already been confirmed by a government entity. That's what people are not understanding. And you think they don't have ID? They have their passports. They have their identification from their country. So why do you feel like the USA is going to put somebody on a flight without an ID? Are you kidding me? I really think that people are willingly saying not so smart things to rile up the public and give false information. I just don't like the narrative that's being given about immigrants as like they're coming here to steal America from us. It doesn't belong to us. Like, where's the delusion coming from? It does not belong to us. America is not our land. Okay? I need everybody to understand that. Because for you to be so territorial over land that your ancestors stole, it's got to be a sickness. It's really have to be a sickness. I don't understand. Now, somebody has shared that it's been reported that California becomes the first U.S. state to offer health insurance to all illegal migrants, costing taxpayers $3.1 billion a year. I understand both sides of this. Trust me. I understand why someone could be frustrated that immigrants are being given health coverage. And I could also understand why someone is saying, why are you even mad about that? I get it, because our healthcare system doesn't even cover all Americans. And for them to say now they're going to give it to immigrants, I can understand why maybe a citizen can be frustrated about that. Also, people were frustrated because they felt like the support that immigrants are being given right now, like not immigrants, but like those who have entered the country illegally recently in the past year, the support that they are being given with housing and food and clothing, many citizens feel like the veterans have not received that support. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I also want to let you know that because one demographic is not receiving the support, that does not mean that another demographic does not need the support. What that means is that the government is not doing what they're supposed to be doing anyway. Veterans were not receiving enough support from the government prior to all of these people coming in from different countries. So if they weren't doing it prior, what makes you think that they're going to do it after? You're trying to find any reason to blame immigrants for the government's actions. If you are frustrated that the government has not provided sufficient support to veterans, that is a problem that you have with the United States of America. If you are frustrated that the government has not provided proper health care coverage to U.S. citizens, that is a problem that you have with the United States of America. I really need y'all to understand this, because you're deflecting and you're not putting the responsibility on the people that needs to be put on. Someone who is coming to the USA to have a better life for themselves and their family is literally just trying to come and work and make money. For you all to feel like, or for whoever feels like that, not all, for whoever feels like immigrants shouldn't be supported because the USA doesn't support veterans in that way, I really think what you're saying there is that the United States of America is not taking good care of their veterans, and you are frustrated about that, especially when you see them taking care of immigrants, because you know they can do it. And I want to let you know that absolutely they can do it. And I think we need to make sure that they do it, because veterans is a very important population. And I also want to let you all know that they haven't been doing it. You've been having a problem with them not doing it. And so that doesn't mean take your anger out on another demographic. That means to put pressure on them to make sure that it gets done. And I absolutely wholeheartedly support whoever is thinking that way of, hey, y'all are providing all of this support to immigrants who recently came into the country, and you're leaving your veterans out to dry. I agree with you. And I think that the United States of America needs to provide more support to their veterans. I don't think that because they need to provide more support to their veterans, that now immigrants are supposed to suffer for that. Because let me tell you, actually where your taxpayer dollars are going. Since people are mad that it's going to cost the USA, since people are mad that it's going to cost California $3.1 billion to provide health coverage for immigrants, let me actually let you know where your real taxpayer dollars are going. CNN reported that in the past year, the USA has spent over $100 billion in aid to Ukraine. Yes, I said it. You heard that. You're tripping over $3 billion. And the US just sent out $100 billion. Okay. Not only that, in total, up to 2022, the US has given aid to Israel over $300 billion. Billion, not million. I got a little cold, so you might not be hearing me correctly. While you're mad about the US supporting immigrants with a program that's going to cost $3 billion, the US has been supporting Ukraine with $100 billion and Israel with over $300 billion. That's before what happened with Gaza and Israel. So you can imagine that the numbers have gone through the roof by now. So what I'm saying is, I believe US citizens have a bit of misplaced anger, and you want to justify that misplaced anger with saying, wow, all of this money is going towards supporting immigrants. Immigrants are the backbone of this country, and I need y'all to understand that very well. Immigrants are the backbone of this country. Middle class America is the backbone of this country. That 1% that gets their money and gets out the way and doesn't even pay proper taxes is not the backbone of this country. What keeps the U.S. going is middle class America, the entrepreneurs, those that are going to their jobs, those that are providing services. That's what keeps the U.S. going. So your problem is not with immigrants. Your problem is with the elite 1% that are so greedy that they would prefer to have billions and watch people live paycheck to paycheck. They would prefer to not pay taxes that they can afford to pay, so that those who are living paycheck to paycheck pay astronomical numbers in taxes. Your anger is misplaced. And I really want you to understand that. You're valid in saying, hey, immigrants should not be allowed to come into the country illegally. It's valid for you to think that. Now, for you to now say that we shouldn't provide any support to them because it's taking away from this and this and this demographic, they have not been supporting those demographics prior to any immigrants coming into this country this year or last year. And that's just me being honest with you. So we need to hold them accountable versus looking to our peers and being mad at them. So that's my take on what's happening with immigration right now. I feel like this is a very heavy topic, and it's going to take people really dismantling racist ideologies before they fully understand what's going on here. Next, I want to talk about Israel and Gaza. This is a very, very, very heavy topic because there's so many innocent lives lost. And I hope that there is an ending soon, because this is traumatic. Like, at this point, this is genocide. What happens here is that Israel, late last year, Israel was attacked by Hamas and wants to respond. But the response has been too violent. Innocent lives were lost on both sides, but something happened in one day, and for you to be still responding daily with airstrikes 3 months later, that's beating a dead horse. That's so unfair, especially understanding the geographical political area. Gaza is surrounded by Israel. There's just a little sliver there, a little bit of sliver near Africa, but it's surrounded. So these people are, in essence, stuck in, they're like sitting ducks because there's nowhere for them to go. If an airstrike is coming, they really don't have anywhere to go. And it's surprising to me that out of all these months, only one country has taken Israel to international court, and that's South Africa. My problem with this is that where are the peacemakers? I saw the United Nations was publishing articles and putting out communications, but who's going to go and be the peacemaker? Who's going to go and enforce the law? Who's going to go and sit these two countries down and let them know, hey, we need peace. We need a peace treaty ASAP. Who's going to do that? Because if not, I really don't see the need for having a large international entity that's supposed to be governing the governments, and we can't even come to a peace treaty. I also think Israel wants to respond to Hamas, like their goal was to get back at Hamas, but at this point, they are responding to the whole, every citizen in Gaza is being impacted by Hamas actions. That is bizarre. That's like you being in New York and a group in New York attack New Jersey, and New Jersey is coming to attack the whole New York for months. There are good people in Israel. There are good people in Gaza. And I just want us to put the humane back in human. Like, this is inhumane at this point. And someone needs to step in. I do see that people have been doing things to fix it, but at this I just feel at this point, every time I see another young person being brutally murdered on social media, it's traumatizing. It's draining. It's triggering. Innocent lives are being lost, and it doesn't make any sense that it's continuing. Like, you've made your point. You've made your point 100 times over. When is it gonna stop now? It's just a heavy topic. You ever felt so hopeless that you're just like, what's the point of even talking about it when I can't even do anything about it? But the point of it is to continue to raise awareness and hope that those who we put in leadership can make the right decision and make the right moves and hold people accountable. This should not be a possibility. We're just too advanced as a world to be doing this to each other. It's crazy. So the last topic that I want to talk about is Harvard's president, Claudine Gay. So people are frustrated with comments that Claudine Gay has made about Israel. And so then they started to dig into her scholarly work. She was just recently made president of Harvard. It's not even been 6 months. And in her 6 months, she made comments that have offended people. And because of that, they started to dig into her work. I know that News Nation reported on it, but I'm trying to find. Okay, Dr. Carol Swain. Apologies if I mispronounced that, but it's spelled Swain. She wrote a book called Black Faces, Black Interests a long time ago, and Claudine Gay, I guess, had used terminology from the book and didn't properly cite it, and so she felt like her work was plagiarized, and she's brought attention to that in the midst of Harvard's president facing backlash for comments she has made about what's happening in Israel and Gaza. And so this past week, Claudine Gay announced that after speaking with the board at Harvard they decided that it was the best, like they came to a common decision that it was best for her to step down from her role as the president in order to like basically save face. Like this is going to be personal. They're going to attack you personally. It might be best for you to step down as president versus being attacked personally every day. And what I think about that is it made me question, because I do work in higher education. It really made me question when these elite institutions get in trouble for discrimination or racism, they really lean on people in those marginalized communities to come out and be liaisons and be support and really help them rebuild their relationships with those populations. So like if you have a woman of color on campus and a group with students of color were offended, 9 times out of 10, whoever is the woman of color in leadership on that campus is expected to go and rebuild the relationship with that group she's a part of. These institutions do this all the time, right? For me, I feel like Harvard, if you're going to appoint someone who has offended a demographic, why not rebuild the relationship? Why not support them wholeheartedly? Why not make them feel welcomed? Why not make them understand that you have their back? But because at the end of the day, the school is still a business, you all are still going to operate as a business, you're going to cut your losses. And this is someone who you all have paraded around as, we finally have a woman of color as our president. You got all of this press 6 months later just to not defend her, just to not support her. Even if you don't agree with whatever actions, you at least can provide support. Why? Because when a white man is in leadership positions, you all will go to bat for them. When a white woman is in a leadership position, you all will go to bat for them. But because she is from a marginalized population, you felt it was better to cut your losses. You really felt it was better to cut your losses and advise this woman that she should step down versus being subjected to personal attacks than to support her. And my question is, for women of color who are working in higher education, or you're in academia, how does this make you feel? And this is not to dismiss offensive actions that Claudine Gay has done. I do think that if you cause harm to a community, you should be held accountable, but it should be done in a way that still allows for growth and rebuilding. Because that's the purpose of community development, is to foster relationships, to ensure there's a sense of belonging on both sides. I feel like Harvard is such a resourceful university, leading in research, leading in academic programs. A wealth of knowledge is on that campus alone. And you all took the easy route. Y'all took the easy route to yet again hold a woman of color as a token and then cut your losses when it no longer benefited you. You took the easy route. You took the cowardly route. And I feel as though this is the challenge that women of color working in the diversity, equity, and inclusion field have to face, because as long as you're quiet and being their token and saying things that they want you to say, you're all good. You're welcome at the table. Yeah, you're included, but you're not valued. And as soon as they make a mistake where it's like, oh, help us rebuild this, you're there to help them and rebuild it and go to bat for them. But they don't do the same for you. And it really makes me question, like, is this a field we're valued in? Is this a field we're supported in? It's hard to do equity and inclusion work, because oftentimes you're put in situations where your words can make or break you. And oftentimes you're put in situations where you have to say what needs to be said because everyone else is going to be quiet. And this is not even about the Harvard and Claudine situation. This is in general. Oftentimes, marginalized populations are put in when you are in a predominantly white space. You feel like you're walking on eggshells. You feel like any little thing I say could be the next thing that gets me out the door. But then you're a token and you're paraded around the university and as like, wow, look, we have this black person here, we have this Native American person here, so we must be great. But how does that person feel working for you? How does that person, how do you support them? How do you engage in conversation with them? How do you support their professional development? Are you rebuilding them? Are you making sure that they understand that you support them and what's best for them? This is what really frustrates me about this situation. It's because for months they have been parading this woman, writing article after article. Harvard has its first woman. Harvard has its first black woman president. And then the first problem, you all cut your losses. I just feel like Harvard proved many people's point about DEI work in certain universities being performative, because because it was done. Harmful comments are being made and makes a certain demographic feel isolated. That is the perfect opportunity to bring those two entities to a conversation of understanding, rebuilding relationships, growth, and doing the work in the moment to teach those who have been impacted, here's how you hold people accountable. And also teach those who have done harm, hey, here's how you hold yourself accountable and rebuild. I just think that the mark was missed here. And for it to be so much of a press run that you all did to showcase how inclusive you are, when your first sign of trouble comes and you leave her out alone in the woods to fend for herself, it just showed your intentions from the jump. So those are my thoughts. It was this process of seeing this happen is really giving me some time to be reflective, because oftentimes you hear like, we're here for you, we support you, and want to make sure you're good, but the first sight of a mistake or the first sight of a disagreement, you choose to leave me out to dry. But when you're wrong, you don't do what's right. You want understanding and support. So I just think that people of color working in predominantly white spaces need to be very intentional with putting yourself first and the university second, because at the end of the day, it's a business and they're always going to choose them over you. So make sure you're doing the same too, so you don't feel used and you don't feel abused. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I wanted to move on to our Stimulate Your Mind segment. And today we are going to I'm going to pull a card from tonight's conversation, which is a card game that I really like. One thing about me is if you come over my house, we're playing a card game. It's just so fun to not have to think about the questions and just like ask them. So this is the card game. I don't know if you all could see it, but it is tonight's conversation. And I believe the creator of this card game is Ace Metaphor on Instagram. And they also have an Instagram, like tonight's conversation has an Instagram. If you are not following them, go follow them. Shout out to Ace, because I love this card game. So I'm going to pull one card and read it. And I'm going to randomly pull a card. Let's see. Read it, and as you can see, I'm not good at shuffling. Tell you my thoughts on it, And I would like for you all to tell me what you think in the comments. That's why I can't play spades, because I don't know how to shuffle. I'm just really like, it's the card game for me. Oh, these cards is kind of spicy. I gotta go looking for the one that I feel like is PG-13 to say on here. And I guess this is a question we could all, I don't want to assume, but many people could relate to. So the question is, I'm trying to put it in the camera. All right. The question is, did you receive beatings or whippings as a child? Would you discipline your children using corporal punishment? Why or why not? I am, now this, I'm not trying to be like politically correct here, so I'm going to give you the honest answer that I would have given my sisters in conversation. Let me put this away first. So, did I get whoopings or beatings as a child? And the question is, did I get whoopings or beatings as a child? And do I believe in corporal punishment? Same thing of like physically disciplining your children. I will say yes and no. I did not get beatings as a child. I can't even remember a time that my father put his hands on us. And my mom, I do remember a time she smacked the hell out of me. I was like, you ever got whiplash? Like, the lady, let me tell y'all, the lady used to wait. She used to call us from upstairs if we did something. And she wait till we get down to the bottom of the step. She waited for us at the bottom of the step. And you know what she did? She looked so calm. So calm. Till you got to the bottom of the step and that slap step. Like, when I tell you, your whole head just turns and you have to double check to see, like, how did we get from 0 to 100? Like, my mom used to really, she wouldn't beat us, but like, I don't remember a time either my parents full blown beating me, but I got a couple slaps here and there when I was younger. I feel like after we turned, like, I want to say 14, 15, my mom I could count the amount of times that she honestly put her hands on me. And I feel like she still kept it at a reasonable limit. But this is what I think about disciplining children. I feel like discipline looks so many different types of ways. Like, I'm definitely a gentle parent. Like, I even see it with my niece and nephews. I literally be like stressed to even discipline them. It's a challenge for me because I'm such a pushover when it comes to children. I'm the worst person to do discipline for children. I'm just such a pushover, and I hope that changes when I have children, because one thing I do notice is that when children are not given limits as they're younger, they don't understand the difference between boundaries and expectations, and so they do whatever they want as they get older. It's hard to get a handle on them, but I also don't think that discipline is equivalent to abuse. I do think that in the younger age is nothing wrong with giving your child a pow if you've repeated it multiple times and done gentle parenting multiple times and it just keeps continuing. Now, should you be abusing your child and hitting them with cables and whatever's in your way? No, that's abuse. You need to seek therapy. You don't need to be full-blown beating your child. I do believe that there are stages where a pow is necessary, and there are stages where gentle parenting is necessary. You as a parent, you use your discretion to know when to do it, but I don't want to provide a politically correct answer and be like, I'm never going to put my hands on my kids, because there are just certain situations when a child is younger that sweetie, I would prefer for me to educate you in the home than for the world to do that, because at the end of the day, my child is going to be black no matter what. So this world we're in is not as understanding of black children. And what I don't want to do is to say, I'm not going to establish boundaries in the home for my child so that when they leave my home, the world is disciplining them. That's my thoughts on it. I know there are a lot of people who feel like putting your hands on a child is connected back to slavery, and I understand that. I also feel like if you discipline your child and you can equate it to a slave being beaten, that is abuse. You are abusing your child. Now, if your child does something that you've repeatedly corrected them on in a way that you feel like you have effectively communicated with them why that shouldn't happen, and they have continuously disregarded you and done it anyway, a pow pow is necessary. I feel like also a lot of people use the justification for kids gotta be beat in order to fully understand. You don't have to beat your children. I do believe discipline manifests in many different forms, and setting boundaries is very important in your home, or the world is going to teach your child boundaries. And I do not want to sit back and think about, well, only if my child understood this, they would still be here with me. I would feel like crap. Now, don't confuse me saying discipline with abuse. I want to make that very clear. I know I already said it, but I need to say it again. Abusing a child is ridiculous because this child does not even have the strength to fight back, and in most cases doesn't even have the confidence to question your authority. So I do feel like people do use the scope of discipline to abuse their child because they have things within themselves that they haven't worked on and they need to go to therapy for, and decides that hitting my child is going to release some type of therapy for me and make me feel better. No, what that shows me is that you are not a good communicator. You don't know how to talk to your child so that they can understand your point of view and that you can also understand their point of view. And you feel like beating them is easier than correcting the action. That's the reality of it. Now, after I have corrected the action multiple times, you're going to have to get a pow pow. Because you're not listening. And I'm going to also call your father. I'm going to call your father. And I think the challenge with this is we need to reestablish the importance of a man's presence in the home. It's so important for, even if you have a girl or a boy, that they have a male figure in their life, because a girl is like, her first love is her father, the one who teaches her how a man is supposed to treat her, the one who teaches her how important she is and how valuable she is. And like, your mother could tell you all of this, but at the end of the day, it's important for you to also hear that from another man. And the reason why I say we need to reestablish the importance of a man's role in their child's life is because in society now we have this saying of, I'm an independent woman, I don't need a man. Yeah, I'm independent, and you're gonna raise these kids with me, and I'm gonna also depend on you. I don't ever hear white women saying, I'm an independent woman, I don't need a man. And I used to be so fast to be like, I don't need a man, I'm an independent woman. Yeah, I'm independent. I could go get that money myself. I am very well established, as you can see, and I have my career, and I know that I am successful and gonna continue to be successful. Now, does that mean I need to diminish the role of a father in the home? No, you're gonna raise these kids. There's only a man could teach a boy how to be a man. Of course, women tend to step in when the father's not in the picture and isn't doing what they need to do. And they do a hell of a job with the resources that they have. But it's very important for a man to be in his son's life and teach him how to be a man. The reason why I'm saying that is to tie it back to the question of disciplining children. There's but so far as a mother I can go with my child. And a man can step back in to provide a different perspective. I'm not saying like beat and be violent, but to provide a different perspective. And it's very important that we reinstate that value and let these young kids know you got mommy and daddy. And we run as a unit here. You can't play good cop, bad cop with us. We're on the same team and we're going to discipline you together as a team. I think that's where sometimes the message gets lost in translation, because when one person feels so frustrated and when one person feels so frustrated and just working multiple jobs and feels tired, and then you got to go home and discipline kids, the easiest thing for you to do is just hit them so that they know that this is bad and that they shouldn't do it. But the most beneficial thing to their well-being and development is to fully explain to them why what they did is not acceptable. And then, after you have done that multiple times and they're not listening, sis, you're going to need to give a little pow-pow. So, that's my answer. I'm kind of went around in a circle for that, but I have so many thoughts in my brain that goes into why children get disciplined and how come mothers sometimes are harsher with their discipline, or fathers are harsher with their discipline. There's so many things that come up in my mind with that conversation, and that's why I like these game cards, is because the conversation can go anywhere and you can really learn about people's thought processes and understand like what they think about the different topics. So I ask you all in the comments, what is your answer to that question? Have you been disciplined? Did you get whoopings? Do you believe in whooping your child? What is your form of discipline? And do you feel like children should be hit? Or do you just feel like a conversation is sufficient? I am open to opposing views. I am open to agreeing views. I am open to views that's in the middle. I just ask that you respect those who have opposing views from you. And honestly, you don't even need to respond if you don't agree. But if you are going to respond, please respond with respect. But yeah, that's my thought on that. So thank you for coming to episode 1 of the Uncensored Journey podcast. And I just want to leave you all with a reminder that you are valued, you are appreciated, you are loved. And just remember that all journeys do not look the same. There are some journeys that there aren't any challenges. There are some journeys that the path or the road isn't even built for yet, and that's your job. There are some journeys where you just have a better privilege than others, and you're going to have a better experience. But at the end of the day, no matter what journey you're on, no matter what experience you're having, make sure that you're creating a path so that the person coming behind you on that same journey has an easier way. That's the whole goal of this podcast, is to ensure that, number one, we're highlighting our experiences, but we're also making sure that someone else doesn't have to go through the same thing that I'm going through, and being a support and a pillar of knowledge in our communities. So, just a reminder, the negative people want a little bit of positivity in their lives. Hurt people, and family is what you make it. So, I'll see you all next time. Bye.